Hi guys, my name's Juan, and today we're going to talk about one specific stream from the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, the Employer Job Offer In-Demand Occupation Stream. But before we get started, I just wanted to give some immigration recommendations based on some direct messages I've been receiving from you guys. Keeping in mind, of course, that I'm not a professional. So the immigration stream we will be covering today is a fantastic option to get permanent residence, especially right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, if you are serious about immigrating to Canada, I recommend still looking at all the available pathways. Often, these applications can have long processing times and other requirements that must be met before even applying. We will see an example of one authorization form required in this video that if you were to receive today, you would still be able to use up to 5 years later. What I'm trying to say is that immigration to Canada doesn't happen overnight. If it's something you really want, I recommend starting sooner rather than later and not allowing COVID-19 to become an excuse to not start the process. It is unlikely that if you started today, you would be boarding a flight today, tomorrow, or even next month for that matter. Whether you start today or sometime in the future after the pandemic, processing times will still be there. However, they could be slightly shorter, but it is worth keeping in mind that there may be others in that same position who are waiting for this thing to end. Ultimately, this is a huge decision, one that you'll be making for yourself. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the subject. So back to the normal video. As I said, we will be talking about the Employer Job Offer In-Demand Occupation Stream. This stream is still available as a permanent resident pathway during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are other pathways within and outside of the OINP. We just won't be talking about those today. However, I will give a brief overview of the OINP, especially those other pathways available right now during the pandemic. But we will focus mostly on the Employer Job Offer Stream In-Demand Occupation. Also, I have added chapters to the timeline down below. You can kind of see it on the red bar. So it should help you find exactly what you want from the video, especially if you're looking back afterwards to listen back on information you've already heard. As always, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask them down below in the comment section. Do keep in mind, I'm not a professional. However, if you would like to be connected with one, I can connect you with a certified immigration consultant, one that would offer a free 30-minute consultation. I'll have links down below in the description with tons of resources on everything we're going to be talking about today. So make sure to check those out if you're serious about pursuing this specific immigration stream for permanent residence. And with that, let's get to the video. So, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, the OINP for short, is the province's economic immigration program. It works in partnership with the Government of Canada through the IRCC. And if you don't already know, the IRCC stands for Immigrant, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. They are the ones who would ultimately make the decision to offer you a permanent residence. So the OINP nominates applicants with the right experience, skills, or education that Ontario needs for permanent residence. Typically, there are 3 main ways to qualify for a nomination within the OINP. 1, the Employer Job Offer category. This is for workers with a permanent job offer from an Ontario employer. And there are 3 streams within this category. We won't go too much into them, but they are the Foreign Worker Stream, which is for workers in skilled occupations. The International Student Stream, and this is for recent graduates in Ontario. And the In-Demand Skill Stream. This is the one we are going to be talking about today, and it is for intermediate skilled workers in some specific sectors such as construction, agriculture, trucking, and personal support workers. The second category within the OINP is the human capital category. This is for workers with experience, education, language skills, and a Canada Express entry profile. And there's another smaller stream within it for graduate students. The third category is the business category. And this one is for entrepreneurs who want to start or buy a business in Ontario. And of all of those categories, the streams within them that are still available right now during the COVID-19 pandemic are the employer job offer in-demand skill stream, the PhD graduate stream, the French-speaking skilled worker stream, human capital priority stream, the skilled trade stream, and the entrepreneur stream. As I said before, I will focus on the in-demand skills stream. So, the employer job offer in-demand skills stream. This one is for foreign workers with job offers in specific sectors such as construction, agriculture, trucking, or personal support work, who want to live and work in Ontario. And this is available to foreign workers in and outside of Canada. So we're gonna go over all of the requirements for this stream, and they're gonna be categorized as either a job requirement or an application requirement, which you will need to have for applying. And we're gonna have it numbered and categorized here on the timeline so you can kind of skip between them if you forget any. So the first job requirement is the job offer must be for a full-time and permanent position. So full-time means that the job offer must be for 30 hours of work per week minimum. And permanent means that when you receive your job offer, there is no end date mentioned in the job offer. This doesn't mean you always have to stay there. It mostly applies to things like contract jobs where you will be hired for a single year, or seasonal jobs that would end after some period within a year. The next requirement is that the job offer must be for an in-demand occupation. And there is a somewhat long list of eligible occupations for this stream. So I'm gonna take screenshots and put them up on the screen for you guys to look at. Just make sure you pause and get a really good look. And there will be two separate lists. One of them will be for jobs anywhere in Ontario. The other will be for jobs specifically outside of the Greater Toronto area, but still in Ontario. And just as a note, all of these occupations will be for the NOC skill level C or D. This one is for positions offered in any location in Ontario. Make sure to pause now and get a good look. And this one is for job offers outside of the Greater Toronto area, but still in Ontario. So the next requirement is that the job must pay at least the median wage or above it. To find the median wage, you can go on the Job Bank website and check the NOC number of the occupation you are looking into. So just to give an example, this is the website and I am looking for 3413 nurse aid right here. So I would type that in, find nurse aid, I go to search, and here it's gonna give me the median in Canada, as well as if I scroll down, I go to Ontario. This is all Ontario right here. And as we can see, the wage median is right here. That is 20.27 Canadian dollars per hour. If by chance you are already working in the occupation you will be using to apply, the wage for your new job offer must be equal to or above what you are already getting paid. The exception to the wage rule would be if there is already some sort of agreement with a union for your occupation. So the next requirement is the position must be necessary to the employers. This one isn't so much a requirement that you will need to look out for, but it is one that you should know about, just in case the job offer you receive, especially if you are outside of Canada, doesn't sound like it fulfills this requirement. So the position must be necessary to the employers. What does this mean? It means that the offered position must contribute to the existing business activities, and it must be necessary to grow or maintain the business. The final requirement, and this is an obvious one, but it still needs to be mentioned, the job offer must be for work that is primarily done in Ontario. So those are all of the requirements for the job offer. And now we're going to take a look at the application requirements. So number 1, you must have at least 9 months of full-time paid work in the occupation that you will be applying for. It is possible to have this experience with the part-time equivalent of those hours. Just as a reminder, full-time would mean at least 30 hours of work per week and a total of 1,200 hours in those 9 months. And the part-time equivalent would be at least 15 hours of work per week, adding up to 1,200 hours over a span of 18 months instead of just those 9 months. And you can still achieve this with multiple jobs in that same occupation type. The next requirement is that if your occupation requires some sort of valid license or authorization, especially to do that work in Canada, you will require that license or authorization. There are some resources with information on this specific requirement. I'll have a link for it down below in the description, so definitely check that out, especially if you're in anything like a trade. The next requirement is language. You must have a CLB score of 4 or higher in either French or English. And the test that gave you this score must have been taken within 2 years of applying to the OINP. And the accepted English tests are the IELTS General Training Tests and the CEL-PIP General Test. The accepted French tests are the TEF Canada and the TCF Canada. I'll have a link down below with more information on all of the CLB testing. And the fourth requirement is education. You will be required to have either a Canadian high school diploma or the equivalent of one if you receive that education outside of Canada. And if you did receive that education outside of Canada, you will need what is called an Educational Credential Assessment, an ECA for short. This will prove that your education is in fact the equivalent of a Canadian high school diploma. There are 5 organizations authorized by the IRCC for that ECA. And I'll put up a list of all of those organizations, so make sure you pause and write it down or maybe take a screenshot. And I will also have a link down below in the description for more information on the ECA. Each of the organizations we showed have different fees and processing times, so definitely make sure to get a good look at all of them and see which one is a right fit for you. Once your ECA has been completed, you must give a copy to both the IRCC and the OINP. Authorizing your ECA organization to only give a copy to the IRCC will not be enough. And if you do this by accident or maybe you forget, your application will be returned to you as incomplete. If the processing on your application hasn't started yet, you will luckily receive a refund of your application fee. However, it is worth noting that that refund can no longer happen if the OINP has already begun processing your application. So definitely make sure that if you are doing this application on your own, to authorize both the IRCC and the OINP to this ECA that you have received. And the next requirement is that you must have an intention to live in Ontario. So really what this means is that you must have an intention to live in Ontario after you receive the permanent residence. And the OINP determines this by checking your connections to the province, by checking things like your previous or current work experience, job offers, studying, volunteering, leasing or owning property, visiting, or having professional networks, family ties, or personal relationships, all in Ontario. The final application requirement is that you must have a legal status in Canada. And this one is really only if you're already in Canada. So if you're outside of Canada, this one doesn't quite apply to you. So if you are applying within Canada, you must be here legally with either a visitor record, a study permit, or a work permit. You may still apply if you are in what's called implied status, meaning you have recently applied to the IRCC to renew or extend your visitor record, study permit, or work permit. And those are all the requirements for you as an employee. There is a whole other list of requirements, but these are for employers and I won't be covering those in this video. So now that we have a grasp on the requirements, there are still supporting documents which will be needed for your application. They must all be scanned and uploaded to your online application, and all must be provided in either English or French. If any of those required documents aren't in those languages, what you can do is provide a copy of the original as well as a translation into either English or French. And we actually had to do this because we immigrated here from Peru. And if you don't know, Spanish is the official language there. So this is another section where you need to be extra careful, especially if you're doing this on your own. And this is not to say that DIY immigration applications are not a great way to apply. There's just a lot to cover, so definitely double check, triple check, make sure everything is right. Because if you do not provide all of the required supporting documents, your application will be returned to you. And typically the application fee that you've paid will be refunded, but if they've already begun processing it and then they find that something is missing, that application fee will just be gone forever. And I promise I'm not trying to scare you guys. I know that I offer connections to immigration consultants. However, I just really want it to be clear. Please be careful when you're getting all of your documents together. I'll provide a link down below in the description of kind of a document checklist for you to go through, so definitely check that out, especially if you're doing this DIY. And for those that don't know, DIY stands for do it yourself. It might not be clear. I'm not sure if that's a global thing or like a North American thing. And now we get to the not so fun part, the cost to apply. This application fee will cover the cost of processing your application. So it costs 1,500 Canadian dollars if the job offer is outside of the Greater Toronto area, and $2,000 if the job is within the Greater Toronto area. This includes the City of Toronto, Durham, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Halton, York, and Peel regions. Payment is only accepted via Visa, Visa Debit, MasterCard, or MasterCard Debit. As stated before, you will receive a refund only if your application is found to be incomplete before processing for your application has begun. Unsuccessful applicants will not have their money refunded, and if you are using a representative to apply, this means either an immigration consultant or an immigration lawyer. They must also create an OINP e-portal account, which they will know anyways, so it's not really worth mentioning. I just thought I would. And if you use representations such as an immigration consultant or an immigration lawyer, the application process will be slightly different. And I'll have a link down below on if you choose to use representation. And finally, if your application is successful, you will receive a nomination approval letter, a work permit support letter, and a nomination certificate by email. And the next step would be to apply for permanent residence through the IRCC within the next 6 months. As a side note, your work permit support letter that you would receive can also be used to apply for a work permit from the IRCC while your permanent residence application is still being processed. And that's it, guys. I know that was a lot of information, but I really hope it proves useful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them down below in the comment section. Do keep in mind, I'm not a professional. However, if you would like, I can connect you with a certified immigration consultant, one that would offer a free 30-minute consultation. And if the content is helpful to you, please consider liking, subscribing, and definitely hit that notification bell to get all of the updates. And with that, I hope you guys have a great day and a great life. Take care.